Yeah, so I was watching Bad Dog earlier, and boy, he did not seem happy. And one of the things he was talking about was he talking. I'll use the word talking loosely, but it was pretty much going off on Brian Daboll, Joe Shoen, and being done with them. And this really raises a key concern that I have, and something I mentioned at the end of my last video, which is we kind of have a Jaxson Dart problem already at week one. And the problem is, what if this guy is good? And what if this guy has a lot of potential? And what do we do with that? If what's going on here is we have a coach and a GM combination that is kind of a lame duck season. Because this loss to Washington, the problem with it isn't just that we lost and that it felt like we got blown out. But the problem is that a lot of the problems that the Giants had looked like the exact same problems that they've had. So it doesn't really look like it's necessarily going to get better. I mean, it's hard to project. Again, it's only week one, but it's not just week one. It's last year. It's years before. It's over a decade of the same stuff. And then in recent memory, the problems that we have right now is, again, the offensive line. If you don't have Andrew Thomas on your line, they're done. It's just they cannot. They can't get a push. We saw it on our goal line offense. It was just dreadful. And like I said earlier, Russell Wilson looks a lot like what Daniel Jones did in the last few seasons. It just doesn't have the talent to survive. Problem is Jaxson Dart. What do you do with him? Because you run into this issue where we could throw him out there and he may not do well. And it may not be his fault. It'll be a rookie season. Maybe he's going to need a second year, may not have a good team around him. And you're kind of looking like almost guys like Sam Darnold all over again. Like if you were the Jets, I mean, we're kind of turning into what the Jets have been, which is, you get guys like Sam Darnold, you get guys like Geno Smith who are good quarterbacks, but they were just on the wrong team and couldn't really develop with those teams. Who knows? Maybe Zach Wilson ends up in that same camp. I don't know. And so the Giants kind of have a similar problem here where, the end of Eli's career, he didn't really have much of a chance. Daniel Jones, how much of it was on Daniel, how much of it was on the organization. And so now you have a Jaxson Dart where if you throw him out there and he doesn't do well and the team doesn't do well, the problem is now you're really getting into territory where there's a really good chance that Brian Daboll and Joe Shoen are out of there. I don't think it's just a record thing. I think it's going to be a record in just how do they look. And if they continue to look like this, how much fatigue is there going to be? Because, the problem is that we extended them because we didn't want to just keep cycling through coaches. And I get that. But the problem is you kind of are putting them in a rebuilding situation where they might not be on a real rebuilding timeline, right? Like in most of these teams, they come in, they draft their quarterback, their young guy, and you want that in like their first or second year. And it's what Tom Coughlin got Eli Manning first year. Usually coaching staffs, they want to get their guy, they want to build their team, they want to build their foundation, they want to build with their quarterback, and they're going to do that first or second year. And if they're in their fourth or fifth year, they're already running out of time. So you bring this person in, and what are you going to, you're in a lot of trouble now because you want the time to develop somebody, but you don't really have that timeline because the fans are going to be tired of this regime. The owner's tired of the regime. And are we going to give more leeway? How much more of a leash can you keep giving? And the problem is Jaxson Dart was clearly Daboll's guy. And if Daboll's gone, what do you do with Jaxson next year? Is someone going to come on and say, hey, no, you know what? He's my guy too. I love him. And is that going to be really true, or are they going to kind of feel forced into it? And so you're really in a tight spot there where maybe you've got a guy and maybe he's got a lot of potential, but, and again, it's only week one this year, but I'm already thinking, next year, because again, it looked so bad. This looked like an absolute blowout. Um, and so, what is in store for the team? What do you do with the guy? So really, honestly, what John Mara did by holding on to these guys, if he's not committed to them for a full 2 seasons, really, puts us in a real bind. And do we want 2 more seasons of this? It's kind of a weird thing where you go, well, in a way, it feels like the team never really had a chance to build something from the ground up because of the success that they had in their first year, and then they tried to keep it going and it didn't work. And at the same time, they will have had 4 years and it never worked. And at some point, you have to take ownership of that. Like, it's your regime and it's your responsibility. And if you look at the team, and this has really been the amazing thing, I think that Joe Shoen and Brian Daboll really, they benefited from 2 things. They benefited from a weak schedule in their first year, and they benefited from all the talent that Dave Gettleman brought in. Who have been the best players on the Giants for the last few years? Outside of Malik Neighbors, they got him early pick because they did so poorly the year before, and they had been doing so poorly. Well, other than Neighbors, like who's been great on the team? Dexter Lawrence, David Gettleman. Andrew Thomas, David Gettleman. McKinley, David Gettleman. Saquon Barkley, Gettleman. Like, all these were a bunch of Gettleman guys. And the guys that Shane is bringing on, okay, we got Brian Burns is a good player. We paid a good deal for him. Like, I mean, Tyrone Tracy looks like a solid draft, but he's not like gangbusters. Malik Neighbors, it's not like they're genius, spotted Malik Neighbors. Everybody knew that, that this was going to be a guy, that this was the guy you would draft. They needed to improve their skill position players, and they brought on, the guy who was considered either the number 1 or number 2 receiver coming out of that draft. So it was going to be Harrison, and it was going to be Neighbors, and Neighbors fell to them, and they took Neighbors. But draft after draft after draft has kind of been uninspired, kind of a bust. They haven't been able to rebuild the offensive line. Their defense has holes. And so again, we have a real, issue if Jaxson is a good player. I mean, it's a good problem to have, is to have a good quarterback. But are we going to know this year what kind of quarterback he can be? Maybe. We could throw him out there, and it might be more interesting and more fun for Giants fans, but it doesn't look like he's going to be thrown into a good situation, because, I mean, looking at Russell Wilson, it didn't look like he played bad. It looked like he had no options. As we keep we keep seeing quarterbacks play for this team who look like they don't have much to do. They don't have much time back there. Guys aren't necessarily getting open. It just looks like a disaster year after year after year. And you win what? You win in the trenches. And for whatever reason, this team hasn't been able to develop an offensive line, since 2011, if even that. And you wonder how an entire organization, no matter who comes in, is completely incapable of building out this offensive line. And then what's going on there? Are they... and again, it's Andrew Thomas or nothing. But all of those opportunities at the goal line to be able to potentially punch it in, and you can't punch it in. So what are you going to do? You're going to throw Jaxson Dart into that? What is he going to do? Is it going to be much better? So, you could try them out there, and maybe, and maybe he has moments and he looks good. But this doesn't look like this group is going to last. And if you get rid of them, okay, now what? Now a new group comes in, and you've got this kind of weird situation. And maybe, and you have the Daniel Jones situation all over again. I don't think, to be honest, I know a lot of people believe this. I don't think that Daboll and Shane felt forced into Daniel Jones. I just think you're only as good as your options. And what were their options at that point? Is Derek Carr? I mean, let's say they got there. What would that? All right, how great would that have turned out? But I don't know. It's just it's this weird thing where Jaxson seems like he could be really exciting for this team potentially, but it looks like there's a really good chance this gets ruined, and it looks like it gets ruined because he's playing with the lame duck staff, and maybe a new staff comes in. I know it's really early to be talking about a new staff, but I think people are getting kind of fed up with the Daboll Joe Shane thing. I think they're kind of over it a lot. Obviously, like it's if you win, they'll be back on board. But what we saw against Washington just looked like the same stuff, and it's hard to see it's hard to see it changing if it continues to look like the same old. So you get rid of these guys, and the new group comes in, and in the way Daboll seems to be absolutely in love with Jaxson Dart. Are others going to feel the same way, or they're going to want to bring in their own guy, change things up, build their own staff, build their own team, and then you're starting from scratch again? And then Jaxson Dart does what Daniel Jones did today and has a great game in Indianapolis, or does what Sam Darnold did last year and has a great season, after not working out in New York and getting bounced around with the Jets and then getting bounced around. And then all of a sudden he has a good year because there are guys with talent. Because for all the quote unquote credit and blame that the quarterback position gets, there's only so many Josh Allens where he's just going to ball out whatever the situation. Most of these guys, they're professionals, and it's a team sport, and they're going to be as good as their organization will let them be. You've got to have guys to throw to. You got to have a line, and so unfortunately, look, I don't know. Jaxson Dart is probably not Josh Allen, but what if he is a top 30% quarterback? That's not bad. You'll take it, but that's only going to work on the good football team. It's not going to work on the bad team. And so this is we're in a weird, unfortunate situation because it doesn't seem like there's ever going to be a good time to start him this year. And if we throw him out there, he doesn't seem like he's going to be on a good team. And it's not an Eli Manning situation where he could have a bad year. And don't worry, we've got him another year, and Tom Coughlin has another year, and he because it's his second season. Not his fourth, going into his fifth. So it puts him in a tough situation. So I don't know. It's an unfortunate day.